Picture this. You're the star employee who built the entire company from scratch. You outperformed everyone, crushed competitors, and made the boss look like a genius. But instead of a raise, you get demoted, sidelined, and finally invited to a special meeting in the CEO's private office. Only it's not a meeting, it's a trap. You don't walk out. That's basically the story of Han Xin, the most brilliant general of early Han China, and why he absolutely had to die. Han Xin started out with nothing, not just broke, humiliatingly broke. He was that guy who once crawled between a butcher's legs because he couldn't pay for food. Imagine being bullied in the lunchroom, except instead of Twitter threads and therapy, you swallow your pride, knowing deep down that someday you'll own the whole damn cafeteria. That was Han Xin. He drifted until he landed under Liu Bang, a rebel leader trying to seize power after the fall of the Qin dynasty. At first, Han Xin was invisible, another nameless guy in the HR database. But when Liu Bang finally noticed his brain for military puzzles, he promoted him. And Han Xin didn't just deliver, he redefined the game. Think of him as the military Steve Jobs, but with less turtleneck and more crossbows. His campaigns didn't just win battles, they rewrote the playbook. He flipped enemies with fake retreats, lured armies into traps, and cut supply lines like he was speed-running Total War Ancient China edition. The man had a flair for improvisation. Once he made his troops fight with their backs against a river. No retreat, no second chance. It worked. They fought like hell and won. Every time Liu Bang was cornered by Xiang Yu, the terrifying rival warlord, Han Xin was the one pulling out another trick. Pretty soon, he wasn't just a general. He was the general. He conquered whole states. He broke Zhao, he rolled over Qi, and one by one, the map flipped in Han's favor. For context, Xiang Yu was the heavyweight champ of the time, a guy who once cut through hundreds of men single-handedly. Han Xin managed to outmaneuver him, helping Liu Bang secure the empire. Without Han Xin, Liu Bang probably would have ended up as another forgotten rebel, not the founding emperor of the Han dynasty. And what was his reward? First, a crown. Liu Bang made him king of Qi, one of the richest regions. But crowns in this story are like company stock options. They're just bait before you get diluted into nothing. Han Xin was about to learn what it means to be too good at your job. Here's the issue. Han Xin wasn't family. He wasn't part of the Liu clan. In early Han politics, that was the equivalent of being a contractor with too much access to the company's servers. Temporary, useful, but dangerous if left unsupervised. Liu Bang's empire had a design flaw. He had to reward the people who helped him win, but the more he rewarded them, the less secure his throne became. Han Xin was the biggest problem of all. He wasn't just another general. He had won half the empire. His name carried weight. Soldiers worshipped him. People told stories about him. That's not employee of the month, that's guy who could be CEO if he wanted to. And emperors don't like competition. Liu Bang's paranoia wasn't entirely irrational. Han Xin had already shown signs of ambition. During his campaigns, advisors encouraged him to crown himself, split the empire, and rule in his own right. He didn't take the bait then, but the suggestion alone proved he had the option. And when people know you have the option, trust evaporates. So Liu Bang started clipping his wings. First, he reassigned him from King of Qi to King of Chu, essentially moving him to a less powerful post. Then, after more suspicions of plotting, Han Xin was stripped of kingship altogether and shoved down to Marquis, what you might call VP without portfolio. It was a demotion parade. Imagine being COO and suddenly you're made assistant regional manager. Everyone can see what's happening. The boss is cutting you down to size. The more Han Xin was humiliated, the more dangerous he became. Because once you signal that someone is no longer trusted, you either have to reconcile fully or prepare to finish them off. Leaving him in limbo, respected by the troops, resented by the throne, was like leaving a grenade with the pin half pulled. Then came the trigger event, the rebellion of Chen Shi, also called Chen Shang. He rose in the north, threatening the empire while Liu Bang was away on campaign. In moments like this, the palace became extra paranoid. And paranoia plus Han Xin was a deadly mix. Han Xin had already been demoted, already sulking. Then came the allegation. He had been secretly in contact with the rebel Chen Shi, plotting to join him. According to the records, he even planned a coup inside the capital, with a strike on Empress Liu and the crown prince. Think of it like plotting to seize HQ while the CEO is out of town. All it took was one informer from inside Han Xin's household to leak the plan, and suddenly, everything snapped into place. Maybe he was guilty, maybe he wasn't. It almost didn't matter. The rumor alone was enough, because from the throne's perspective, if Han Xin even looked like he was thinking about rebellion, that was proof he could never be allowed to live. And here's where the setup turned Shakespearean. Empress Liu and Chancellor Xiang Yu, two of the sharpest political operators, decided to spring the trap. They invited Han Xin to the palace on the pretext of celebrating a victory. It was the classic, "Congratulations, you're being promoted" email, only with knives behind the curtains. Han Xin walked into the palace thinking it was a party. Instead, armed guards jumped out, tied him up, and dragged him into the bell chamber. No trial, no debate, no drawn-out show. Immediate execution. This wasn't about justice, it was about risk elimination. As he stood there, Han Xin supposedly sighed and dropped one of the most quoted lines in Chinese history. When the rabbit dies, the hunting dog is cooked. When the birds are gone, the good bow is put away. When the enemy is defeated, the strategist is killed. In other words, thanks for the memories, now it's time to bury the evidence. The execution was swift, but the message was calculated. Han Xin's entire clan was wiped out. The state couldn't just kill him, it had to erase his network, his name, his potential legacy. This wasn't a firing, this was a full data purge. The empire was making sure there would be no Han Xin 2.0 popping up later to inspire a counter-movement. And here's the kicker. This was done while Liu Bang was away. The emperor himself may not have ordered the kill directly, but his system, his wife, his chancellor, read the signals and acted. That shows how little space Han Xin really had. When your boss doesn't even need to be in the room for you to be terminated, you know you were already marked. So why was Han Xin's death inevitable? Because he represented a contradiction the system couldn't tolerate. He was too talented, too celebrated, too outside the ruling family, and too potentially rebellious. In a startup phase, you need your rockstar engineer. But once the company IPOs, the board doesn't want him holding the keys to the server anymore. Better to buy him out, sideline him, or, if you're a ruthless empire, eliminate him altogether. Historians have debated whether Han Xin was truly plotting rebellion or whether it was just paranoia. But the deeper truth is, the emperor didn't need certainty. Even the possibility was enough. An empire isn't a courtroom, it's a risk management operation. And the only acceptable risk is zero. The chilling part is that Han Xin himself saw it coming. That good bow put away line wasn't a sudden epiphany, it was recognition of the rulebook of power. When the crisis ends, the people who solved it are expendable. You can hear echoes of this everywhere. Corporate founders edged out of their own companies, wartime generals discarded after victory, whistleblowers punished once the danger has passed. It's not unique to Han Xin, but his story is one of the starkest, because he really was the architect of victory and still ended up headless in a palace chamber. So what do we learn from Han Sen's fall? In power politics, being indispensable is dangerous. You can save the empire and still be seen as a threat. You can build the system and still be erased by it. The more critical you are, the more the system will want to prove it doesn't depend on you. That's the paradox of loyalty and achievement. Han Xin is remembered not just for his brilliance in war, but for how quickly that brilliance turned toxic in the eyes of the throne. He had to die not because he failed, but because he succeeded too well. And in the world of emperors, that's the ultimate crime. So the next time you're at work and the boss starts praising you too much, maybe remember Han Sen. Sometimes the best career move isn't to be the star. Sometimes survival means staying just useful enough, but never irreplaceable.